We certainly do appreciate very much that you decided to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, coming to you from our phenomenal studios, as always, because we have Charles Davis as our guest. As good a communicator as there is in all of sports. And Charles Davis had the Cincinnati Bengals with his CBS responsibilities as an analyst with Iron Eagle during the course of the season. So he knows what he's talking about when we talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. And we do discuss the Bengals. We discuss coaching changes. We discuss the National Football League playoffs and also college football. It picks us a winner in college football for the national championship game. All of that coming your way. Good stuff with Charles Davis. Welcome once again to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're in our magnificent studios, and we know you can be doing a lot of things, so we do appreciate you carving time to be with us. And you made a great call, tremendous decision, because we've got none other than the great Charles Davis with us today. This man, defensive back with the Tennessee Volunteers in the SEC, highest level of football you can play at. And he's been an analyst with CBS for a good bit, but he's been an analyst. I mean, everybody wants this guy's talents, and including the NFL Scouting Combine, and of course, then he's the analyst for the Reese's Senior Bowl. Also, if you know my grandkids, they've now got Madden NFL, and since 2017, he's been the analyst voice for Madden NFL. Charles, you're a man. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Dave. That's a lot you crammed in there, and you didn't need to do that at all. But the Madden NFL stuff seems to be the thing that hits the most, especially when you talk about, you and I had a position where we would have grandkids or great grandkids, or if you're an uncle or aunt or whatever. Those are the ones that kind of hit where the kids know you from that. You can do a lot of different things, but it's usually that lowest common denominator, meaning the one that hits the kids. When I say lowest, I mean youngest, probably common denominator, because that's the one that the kids really lock in on. Adults, they're like, yeah, whatever. I mean, okay, that's great. But the kids are like, oh, you're the Madden guy, and I got a few notes for you. So you love that part.
Boy, that gives you cred, though, at all ages, man. I mean, everybody.
Hey, never turn down street cred, Dave.
There you go. So, and you're a tremendous communicator. I mean, there's no question about that. You're as good as I've ever known. So we want to get into what you've seen. Maybe just an overall question.
Yeah.
What's the best individual and/or team performance that you've seen this fall?
Ooh, the best individual and/or team performance I've seen this fall. Wow.
I know it covers a lot of ground there.
Covers a lot of ground. We saw them in person, and it didn't happen in person. But when I've seen them in other situations, those Baltimore Ravens, when they are on their game offensively, and Todd Monken is an offensive play caller, has zero concern about, in order to be known as a really good offensive play caller, you got to throw it around 35 times. And they hand it to number 22 and get things established. And then Lamar Jackson's 12 of 14, 12 of 15 passing behind him and just carving you up. That's about as fun as I've seen so far this year. Doesn't mean there haven't been others. Obviously, watching what Joe Burrow did in Cincinnati under sometimes adverse conditions was just phenomenal, to be in ball games or find a way to win ball games that way. We got to see. We saw Kansas City twice in person, and in both of them, they were really close, tight games. So the reason I bring them up is that team is just very comfortable with tight now. They're very comfortable with, okay, if it's going to be a 1-2 point game, all right, we'll find a way to make a play. Whereas other teams are not comfortable with that at all. They're like, whoa, yeah, we can't do that. That's kind of what's separating Kansas City and why they've won back-to-back titles and are the number one seed in the AFC as they head towards a third. I could break down the league, Dave, and go to a bunch of different places. But when I watch Baltimore on top of their game, they might be the team that scares everybody the most, especially after what's left in these playoffs. And their game in Buffalo, I think we're all going to be locked in on that, on Sunday night when they go to Buffalo. And I'm pretty sure the temperature at that point will be into the single digits.
Right.
Because I think it's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff. As a defensive back, you're going to have to ask yourself a lot of questions about whether you really want to play that night if you're the one coming up and having to chest up Derrick Henry when he breaks through on a trap.
Point well taken there, sir. That's why I look at Philadelphia and Baltimore. I mean, they both got tremendous offensive and defensive lines. They've got a great running back. They've got a quarterback, that's played at Pro Bowl level. I just look at those two football teams, and everybody talks about, complete or balanced football, balanced offensive attacks, complementary football, offense helping defense. I just think when I look at those two football teams, they can beat you, multiple ways. I guess I'm old school. I appreciate, offenses that do implement a sound ground game and then complement that with a passing attack that can really hurt you. I think these two teams might end up facing each other. What do you think?
It's a great call, Dave. It's a fantastic call because I do feel like around America, and I've been lucky enough to get around to a few different places, but my sample is a very small sample, right? But just based on feeling the league and feeling what we hear, I don't know what it's like for you, but I would say with about 3 weeks ago in the season, there was a very steady, groundswell for Detroit versus Buffalo in the Super Bowl. Long-suffering fans, groups. Detroit has never been there. Buffalo had those 4 in a row and didn't win it. Haven't been since. Phenomenal fan bases who supporting their teams like crazy. You go to Detroit and try and play now. Good luck trying to get your snap count out there. The Bills Mafia is well documented. Hard Knocks 2 seasons ago took Detroit to a different level. They became America's second favorite team, whoever you supported. And I like Detroit too. I think Buffalo has that kind of a feel to it as well. And they became a real underdog this year because of all the moves in the offseason. No one thought, wow, could this team be and they're better. So there's a real groundswell. But the two teams you just mentioned might be better than both. And that's going to be the interesting part because of the way they run offense. I'm just going to put them head-to-head together because you suggested it. These two quarterbacks, similar type players, strengths really reside more in one area than the other. I think for Hurts, his ability to run the football is big, but his injury late in the season, will that limit him in doing it? And he runs it differently than Jackson does, we know.
Right.
Jackson's wide receiver core got better this year. Rashad Bateman came to the front and really helped him to go with Zay Flowers. It wasn't just, can I find Mark Andrews at tight end and then maybe find Zay Flowers? But now Rashad Bateman became a viable third option. Well, in Philadelphia, you're loaded with receivers. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, throw it to Saquon out of the backfield. So that's a little bit different for them as well. So I'm really eager to see those two continue to try and advance in these playoffs. And you mentioned the offensive lines, big, massive, massive people. Like I think Philly's smallest guy is their center, Cam Jurgens.
Yeah.
Checks in somewhere around 315, 320, and he's the little guy.
It's unbelievable. It really is, man. So let's talk about the game that you just had. Houston. I mean, they took apart the Chargers and talk about line play. Houston, in my mind, just dominated the line of scrimmage, on both sides of it. But you have a quarterback that almost throws for 300. Stroud throws for 282, 22 of 33, good completion percentage. Joe Mixon rushes for 108 and a touchdown. Nico Collins goes for 122 on 7 catches. You have a 100-yard receiver, 100-yard rusher, almost 300-yard quarterback. I mean, they put it on the Chargers, didn't they? And then, of course, what they did to Herbert, I mean, three interceptions all year, and he gets 4 in this football game, sacked 4 times, pressured and hit countless others. I mean, it was a butt whipping, wasn't it?
It was, but it didn't start that way, Dave. It started with the Chargers dominating the line of scrimmage, dominating the game, had their way on the first 2 drives, moving the football, but couldn't ring the bell with touchdowns. Ended up kicking 2 field goals.
Yep.
That's where the game started to be won by Houston because early on, Houston couldn't get their footing, couldn't get their standing. Los Angeles was racing and going and going and going. But to hold them to the 2 field goals was massive. All right. We always talk about it. Hey, can you only hold them to field goal attempts instead of touchdowns? If you can't, you keep us in the game. Well, they did. Houston's offense was struggling. Could not run the football at all. Joe Mixon, look, for the year, people may not have known this, and I probably did a lousy job of communicating it. But for the year going into the game, on over 50% of his runs, Joe Mixon was hitting the backfield. And he ran for 1,000 yards on the season.
Wow.
That was happening early in the game. You mentioned how the offensive line took charge later. It did. Because in the first part of the ball game, Bobby Sloak, the offense coordinator for Houston, he just said, we can't run the ball. And he said, hey, number 7, you're my quarterback. You're now going to be my point guard. You distribute. Make decisions, distribute the ball. I had said in pregame, said in the open, Dave, wouldn't surprise me if he threw it 40 times in this game. He threw 33 because Mixon is able to run it much better in the second half.
Yep.
So it took a while to get going. And I started to think of Coach Boone and Remember the Titans?
Sure.
Remember his assistant? They also looks like a real thin playbook you got there. He goes, yep, split veer. It's all we run. May not be much. He said, what did he say? He said, it's like Novocaine. It may take some time, but it always works. Well, that's kind of what Houston did in this game. It took a little time.
Yeah.
They got going. Now the hole started open for Mixon. Now it happened. Now Stroud had better opportunities to throw the ball. He kept his poise under pressure. Remember the 3rd and 19, the ball gets snapped over his head. He has to go get it.
Yep.
I thought he's going to throw it in the stands, punt, live divided up. No, he finds Xavier Hutchinson for 30-something yards down, and they just took off on a 3rd and 19. And from that moment on, they went. But the moment for me, Dave, was before that. Los Angeles up 6-0. Get a takeaway on the plus 40 of Houston. And the first play, they go for the big shot, and Herbert throws a pick to Kamari Lassiter. They felt impatient at that point. Felt like Los Angeles had said, we squandered multiple opportunities. We've got to mash these guys now. And they didn't. And now Houston's confidence just rose. They're like, hey, they tried to knock us out, and they just can't do it. And Houston turned it around and won the game convincingly, as you talked about. A tremendous performance for D'Amico Ryans and crew. And the last thing I'll say, Dave, how many times have you played in the game? How many times have you been around the game? How many times you broadcast the game? And momentum is the word that we use. And coaches always go, momentum only lasts so long. It doesn't carry over. And sometimes I kind of an arched eyebrow on that.
Right.
The Chargers came into the game, 3 straight games, 34 points per ball game. 3 straight games, Justin Herbert over 300 yards throwing. 3 straight games holding people under 20 points on defense. They were rolling. Houston came into the game, almost no momentum whatsoever. Up and down year, 10-7, only 1-5 against plus 500 teams. You get the whole idea. What do we say about momentum right now? You can get right in a week. And Houston did. And Los Angeles, terrific year, on their way home. And by the way, in a lot of ways, good. They get to go home and take care of families, friends, people, because they were going through the horrific fires that continue to rage out there. Yeah. So now they get just a single focus on what is most important in this world. They would love to have a split, but I certainly hope for them and everyone else out there affected that everything's going to be okay eventually. It's been horrific to watch from a distance.
That's a great call. Great call. And then defensively, I'm thinking, no, Houston, they may make even a little bit more noise because their edge rushers, their defensive line in its entirety really can cause problems, and not have to be a heavy blitz team. They can pressure with just their front 4, and on the back end now, as you know, you played the position, they're pretty salty back there now. They got some good cover people.
They got sticky and they're losing, and they don't have everyone. Jalen Petrie, who I think is one of the better nickel-type safeties in the league, hurt and he's out. Jimmy Ward, who has great experience, played on Super Bowl teams in San Francisco, he's out.
Yep.
Back there, you have Kamari Lassiter, the rookie corner out of Georgia. Dave, he got a pick in this ball game. I think he had 5 for the season now when you added that one. He had 1 pick his entire time at Georgia.
Unreal.
Okay?
Unreal.
Derek Stingley, all-pro for the first time, Pro Bowl player for the first time. People were wondering for the longest time who did the right thing drafting because Nick Caserio took him at number 3 overall. You know who went number 4 overall? Sauce Gardner to the Jets. Sauce was an all-pro the first 2 years, terrific player, and it still is. Don't act like he's not. But Derek Stingley came into his own. So guess what? Nick Caserio, Joe Douglas, who was the GM in New York at the time, both of them proven correct. They had it right. It just sauce hit earlier because a lot of people go, oh, no, did we take the wrong guy?
Yeah.
No, you took the right guy. The coverage is sticky. You mentioned the edge rushers. Daniil Hunter, who's been the dominant for so long in Minnesota, first year in Houston. Will Anderson, second year in Houston as a top overall, one of the top overall picks. I think he was number 3 overall, but somewhere in that neighborhood, or 4, whatever it was. They are great. But you know where they really got good? You mentioned other players. Fadakasi's very good in the interior, especially against the run.
Yep.
But getting Danico Autry changed everything for them. Terrific pro, has been good everywhere he's been. Started the season on the suspended list, I believe, Dave. But he's played 10 games now, and he was a major factor in this one. Gave him that third rusher that made it very difficult for an offensive line, and that changed things. So if you're Kansas City now, you realize in this ball game, and you've had your trouble, especially on the edges, here come 2 great edge players. But that interior 3 you have that are all Pro Bowlers, they better be able to handle Danico Autry because he's bringing it too.
So in the wild card round, every game was a 2-score game except for one. Washington goes on the road and edges Tampa Bay 23-20. Man, what about that rookie phenom? I mean, how poised, how composed can a young man be? It's unbelievable to watch him play.
Dave, COVID did nothing good for our world. Let's be honest about it.
True.
It ruined lives. It destroyed families. It changed how we do things in so many ways. I don't know what we can really say that was positive about it other than we all fought and scratched and tried to come together. But what COVID did by giving extra eligibility and more time in college is it changed quarterbacking play for this group that came out.
Great call.
Okay, because the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, was 3 full years in college as a starter.
Yep.
Okay, Oklahoma and USC won a Heisman. Number 2 overall, Jaden Daniels, 5 years.
Yep.
Arizona State, Notre, and LSU. And by the way, Brian Kelly is his head coach. Is there anyone harder on college quarterbacks than Brian Kelly? The answer is no. So if you can handle Brian Kelly and get better and flourish and win a Heisman, you're going to be okay. Drake May, 3 full years as a starter at North Carolina. J.J. McCarthy, 3 years as a starter at Michigan. Michael Penix, five years in college, counting Indiana and Washington, 33-7 as a starting quarterback. You see where I'm going?
Yep.
Bo Nix, 61 starts in college. Right. This crop of young quarterbacks came out and was able to perform in large part because they had experience and have been in the big arena many times before. So they adapted a lot quicker. And that's what we have seen. And that's what we saw from Jaden Daniels. By the way, Dave, these 2 teams met in the season opener. And Tampa jumped on them. See how they bookend the season? This kid was ready to go. Now they wasn't ready game 1 because he's been good right from the beginning. But this was sensational.
It was.
And allowed Zane Gonzalez to hit the upright and the ball trickles through. Can't imagine what was going through his head, his mind, his heart as he tried to pull his leg back and make that kick. And that ball was just moving right, wasn't it?
Oh,
that upright took it back in for him.
Yep.
But give Jaden Daniels, that offense, a lot of credit because they took the ball, what was it, Dave, the last 4+ in the game and never gave it back.
Never gave it away. Yep. Unbelievable.
Never gave it back.
That's the way you finish, man. Take a knee,
Yes.
All right. So in this divisional game, Texans, Chiefs, Washington, Detroit, Rams, Eagles. How about the performance the Rams got from their vintage quarterback? Ravens, Bills. I mean, what game intrigues you the most?
Ravens Bills is my headliner to start things off. Cannot wait to see that game.
Yeah.
Style of play, quarterbacking, and not to mention, we think the top 2 candidates for MVP are playing in that game.
Right.
Between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And to me, with 3 weeks to go in the season, we could have engraved the trophy for Josh Allen. But the way things finished, I don't think you engrave it. And then the AP All-Pro team was announced, and Lamar Jackson was first team and Josh Allen was second. I don't know if that's a signal about MVP or not because all the votes are in.
Right.
But I cannot wait to see that game be played. Philadelphia and the Rams intrigues the heck out of me as well because Jalen Hurts' second game back after sitting out a few games. But he's going to have to be able to throw the football because that Los Angeles defensive front is playing really well. With Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Bobby Brown. And, yes, there's no Aaron Donald. We know that. But they played well. And, boy, they wreaked some havoc. Heck, they got a corner blitz from Ahkello Witherspoon that knocked the ball free. And the rookie Jared Verse picked that up and ran like he was a flanker down the sideline.
He did.
He wasn't just, those weren't short, choppy steps. My man was striding.
He was motoring, man.
He was doing it. And they played really well, not to mention, as you said, Stafford in the offense. Again, we go through this every year, Dave. Teams with better records come in as wild cards below teams that win the division and their record. And we always scream, we got to change it. I like the fact they protect the divisions. The divisions are paramount.
Right.
You're going to get some anomalies. But guess who won the ball game? The division winner with a worse record, who had more to deal with going into the game because they were the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
They were dealing with the fires. They were dealing with family. They had to go to Arizona, get everyone out of harm's way, regroup, find a way. And they played like there was no problem with focus whatsoever and throttled a 14-win Minnesota team who I felt horrible for. Because when you win 14, you shouldn't be one and done in the playoffs.
No doubt.
Be that way. But the better team that night definitely won the game. So those are the top two that intrigue me. Not that the others don't. I am definitely keeping an eye on Houston and Kansas City, though, because each week you just wonder, is this the week that it just doesn't come together for Kansas City and finally someone gets them? That pass rush is going to be the key. I think Andy Reid has done a tremendous job over the last 3 seasons in changing who he is as a play caller and turning and handing it to people to tamp down pressure. So if Pacheco does his bowling ball with knives imitation carrying the ball, I think Kansas City's got a chance to be okay.
All right, so now let's go to the Bengals. And I know you had them during the course of the season. Offensively, superior, juggernaut. Joe Burrow, historical season. Jamar Chase, Triple Crown, historical season. Trey Hendrickson led the National Football League in sacks. Those three, to have the leading passer in terms of yards, attempts, completions, touchdown passes, the leading receiver in Triple Crown, receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and the leading sacker. That trio has never happened and not made the playoffs. It's historically, it doesn't happen.
Never happened.
So
it's stunning.
This defensive football team, I think really, if the defense was just fair to Midland, this football team would be better than over half the teams in the playoffs right now. How do they get this defensive football team fair to Midland?
Gonna need some health. That will help. I don't think Sam Hubbard was ever himself all year, Dave.
Right.
After I saw the offseason surgeries and just watched him play, didn't see the normal burst you got from Sam. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Sam Hubbard's not a double-digit sack guy, all right? So it's not like they lost 10 sacks one year and didn't get them this year, right? Sam's going to tap out somewhere around 6 to 8 sacks, okay? And I don't mean that as any type of criticism.
Right.
That's what you're going to get from him, and it's going to be really good. He's also going to make a ton of other plays for you, right? He's going to knock the ball free when you don't expect it. He's going to get his hands in the passing lane. He's going to lead because he's one of those tremendous leaders that always has a C on his chest. He's a great player. Who are you going to get that's going to help you run stuff? DJ Reader not being there became apparent that was a big deal.
Right.
Okay. I know that Rankins was supposed to help. He got sick, but he's still much more of an up the field player, Dave, than he is a stuffer.
Right on.
Okay. So that'll be interesting. I still like the linebackers, but they need the help from the front. Okay. And Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson. Yep. And then the secondary took its beating as well.
Yeah.
And I know Lou Anarumo ended up losing his job over this. I'm a huge Lou Anarumo fan. When he had it going with the secondary, those are his babies, as DJ Reader used to say, oh, those are Lou's babies now.
Right on. Yep.
He had it when Von Bell was Von Bell, who was not this year when he came back.
Yeah.
He had Jesse Bates, and he had those corners out there that could play. That was a different secondary. They got to do some work there. Cam Taylor-Britt's got to come back next year and become Cam Taylor-Britt, who we know he can be. You got to get some health on the other side because of too many injuries with the other corners. All those things have to happen for them. And if so, they'll be okay. And I think you're right. Look, the Colts, when Peyton Manning was there, they won a Super Bowl with a good defensive pass rush because what was the old adage? You always played with a 14-0 lead if you're in Indianapolis.
Right.
And now here comes Freeney and here comes Mathis.
Right.
Kansas City in the early days played with a 14-0 lead with Mahomes in the offense. And then, Chris Jones could get going and guys off the edge.
Sure.
Kansas City has morphed into a defensive team that kind of leads their team. They will shut you down now, not just play with a lead. It's a totally different thing.
Right.
I'm not saying Cincinnati's got to morph into that, not with the offense they have, but they've got to do something to help the offense. So everything isn't a flat-out track meet. Although in a track meet, you don't want to play Cincinnati, okay? And I do think that Zach Taylor going forward, it won't surprise me at all, that running the ball just a touch more might not be a bad thing.
Agreed. As a former O-lineman, I'm with you, Coach. I agree with you. All right, so Lou Anarumo, I love the guy. He's a great friend of our show, of our podcast. I mean, he's done it multiple times with him. He's great. He'll be coaching somewhere in the National Football League as a defensive
coordinator somewhere if someone's smart.
No doubt. And he'll probably take some of the coaches that won't be here defensively for the Bengals as well. I'm sure that'll occur. But to replace the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, was one of the early candidates that interviewed. How much do you know of Patrick Graham?
I will tell you that I met Patrick Graham when he was a student. Students is probably the wrong word. Probably a GA. I think back when we still used GAs as the term. I don't know if they still do or not in college football.
Yeah.
Grad assistant. Played at Yale.
Yep.
Grad assistant at Notre Dame. And I was in South Bend to host the College Football Hall of Fame dinner, which back when the College Football Hall of Fame was in South Bend, Indiana. That's where it used to exist. I was there to host that. My son was with me. I called over and asked if I could get a tour at Notre Dame. Their chief of staff, Chad Klunder, was nice enough to do it. He said, listen, I'm not going to be there on the weekend. I'll see you at the dinner. But I've got a grad assistant named Patrick Graham who's going to show you around. That's where I met Patrick Graham. And he showed us around the whole deal. Every now and then he would my son will pop in and go, that's the guy who showed us around. I said, yeah, he's doing pretty well for himself, isn't he? So what I'm saying, the reason I tell you that story is that's the American way, Dave. You work from the bottom. You work your way up by perfecting your craft, by learning, teaching, going through the fire, doing all those things. And now he's been a coordinator at multiple places.
Yep.
And if you check the defensive record, all of those defenses were pretty darn good. Okay. All right. When you look at them, there's a lot of top 10 rankings in defense with Patrick Graham's name next to him. So he is a multiple type of a coordinator. Obviously, the good ones look at the talent they have and play to it as opposed to, this is my system, you have to play it. He's going to emphasize and lean on what he works with. He's a great motivator, terrific listener, and players like to play for him. Otherwise, you don't have top 10s all the time because Patrick Graham has had top 10 defenses on bad football teams. You know what it's like to motivate guys when the football team is bad and you keep guys out there still playing hard while you're losing a bunch of games? You're losing the games mainly because your offense can't help you very much.
Exactly.
That is not, he has never had a problem doing that. And in this case, if somehow he becomes a coordinator in Cincinnati, I don't think he has to worry much about the offense. He better just handle his own business. And if he does, the rewards will be significant because that Cincinnati team will be ready to go.
I think you make a great point. It's got to be an attractive job because of the offensive performers.
You're a coordinator?
Yeah.
How do you not want to take over? Because you just look at what happened this year and said,
right,
wow, they did that this year?
Right.
If I just do a decent job, it's going to look great. If I get health on my side, it's going to look great. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are very interested in talking to Zach Taylor about this job.
And I think he's probably like, hey, I'm going to be on some lists for head coaching opportunities. I don't want to commit too soon here. You're going to have to be patient. I'm interested. You got a great offensive schematic. You have great coaches on that side of things. Darren Simmons, your special teams coach, highly regarded. Rico is a punter. Money Mac is a kicker. All these things, these supporting factors, man, we got a punter that can get us out of bad field position. We got a kicker that can kick from 55 plus. We got all this stuff. I think that they're going to be able to find somebody. I really like him though. I mean, I would not have a problem with that. Another name
he's a good one, Dave. But as you noted, there's a lot of people would love to have an opportunity to talk to Zach Taylor about taking that job.
He's not going to have a hard time getting interviews set up.
He's got a hard time winnowing it down. That's what he's a hard time doing.
Right on. I agree. All right. So offensive line, lose the offensive line coach, Frank Pollock, is gone. A guy that interests me as a former Syracuse University player is Doug Marrone.
Yeah.
Been around for a while. He's been a head coach. He's been a coordinator. He's been everything. And
made his bones coaching the O-line to work his way up to get to be coordinator, to get to be head coach.
Right.
And knows how those trenches work. Former O-lineman himself, gets it, understands it, and people tend to play well for him.
Yeah. I mean, those two names kind of, if they end up with those two,
I think those would be home run hires if indeed those are the two. So be interesting to see what process Zach has to go through. As I said, winnowing it down. When you have an environment like Cincinnati, a great city for you and your family to live in, a place where the people care about your franchise and your organization, a place where you've been winning a lot in recent years, and the ability to win again is still right there. Again, the interest in that job is big time. And if you are any type of competitor, you play in the AFC North. So every game you play in that division, your offensive line or your defense could very well be the reason that you win a division, that you have to make those kind of plays in those types of games. An offensive line has got to deal with Baltimore's defensive front, with Pittsburgh's defensive front, with Myles Garrett in Cleveland, right? A defense overall has now got to deal with, look at what you're dealing with, Baltimore. Are you going to have Lamar Jackson rules? Are you going to deal with Derrick Henry, right?
Yep.
And then you got to deal with Pittsburgh and figure out what they're going to do next. If back running the ball well, who's going to be their quarterback? Can they add to their firepower anywhere? Because they were running it and then throwing it over your head. That was their formula when it was working. They're going to have to come up with something else, I think, now. So we'll see how that goes and add some talent. And then Cleveland, who knows what's going to happen, but we do know that when Kevin Stefanski has people in place, those three tight ends running the football, beat you up in a big way, and then find a way to play action, boots, all those sorts of things, throws, they can hurt you. 2 seasons ago, they were in the playoffs. This season, it didn't go so well. A lot of injuries, collapse at quarterback, etc. But twice he's been in the playoffs with really good offenses. He's a heck of a coach.
2-time coach of the year in a 4-season span. That's saying something.
Yeah. He would like to go 2 years in a row and be in the playoffs as opposed to playoffs, rebuild, playoffs, rebuild. But he's working, trying to get that consistency going.
Finally, and you've been, I don't know what is the best adjective, phenomenal, outstanding, what are all of them. I appreciate all the time that you carved for us. Give us the 2 teams in the Super Bowl and a Super Bowl winner, and then pick me the winner, Notre Dame, Ohio State. What do you think?
I got Ohio State winning it. I picked them. My Vols went up to Columbus, and I thought we had a real good shot at them. I really did, and we got battled. Now, I'm not one of those that goes, oh, we didn't play well. No, give Ohio State the credit they deserve. They jumped on us, and that was all she wrote. And they've just carried it on through. Jumped on Oregon, who was number 1, right? I think they're the best team left in the deal. Them and Notre Dame obviously have gotten there. I love the Notre Dame story. I love that Marcus Freeman's a former Buckeye. I like that football team overall. I just feel like Ohio State is living up to its promise right now and playing their best football at the right time. So I've got Ohio State winning the national title in that one. The 2 teams, so many people want Buffalo, Detroit. I mean, you can just feel it. Yep. Kansas City gets there for the third and has a chance for their 3rd in a row. It's going to drive America crazy. Kansas City finds a way to get there. And I think that they are going to play Philadelphia again. And out of that, Kansas City by field goal in overtime.
At the gun?
At the gun. Why not? At the end of the first overtime, they get it again. Kansas City finds a way to win it, and everybody goes home going, how did they do that?
That's great. Great stuff. I can't thank you enough. Charles Davis is, like I said to start the podcast, there's no better communicator walking the face of the earth than this guy. Appreciate your time as always.
Dave, you're the best. Thank you so much. Great talking with you, and have a great off season. And I know we'll reconvene a few places along the way.
I know you don't have an off season, man. You're busy year round.
Hey, you're the same as I am, so I know I'll be seeing you.
You're the man. Appreciate you, Charles.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.